Stevens will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll start this evening's special meeting here with board comment, if there is any, and then if there is any comment from the administration or introduction, folks that need to hear. So board comment?
I just have a listen.
Yes, please.
I missed my opportunity last meeting when we were talking about MCEL to also mention that I'm going to be a delegate with the MTSBA Assembly this year. Basically, it's just a communication aid, being somebody who can bring information back to you guys or just kind of prompt, say, like to read this email or look at this think tank, but also to help us kind of rally up and be a voice to different things that can help move K-12 public education forward in the next legislative session. So more on that later, but there's that, and we might get some information.
Thank you. Other board comment? Administration? All right. Public comment. This is the time for public comment for matters that are not on the agenda. Topics for public comment cannot include any pending legal matters, private personnel issues, or private student issues. The board cannot enter into any discussion during general public comment. The board may occasionally ask questions to clarify public comment or correct inaccurate statements. Is there any public comment? All right. We'll start first with a quick consent agenda of some hirings and some employment, and then we'll do some introductions and meet folks while we're having this special meeting tonight. So you'll see in your packet that we have on our consent agenda, we have, including substitutes, we have 10 names to take a look at for mainly for some of our classified staff and some coaching positions. So as you take a look at that, we can ask questions if need be. I'll remind everyone that items on tonight's consent agenda have been organized as such due to their similar nature and have been deemed unlikely by the superintendent and board chair to require individual discussion. Any trustee has the right to request that an item be removed from the consent agenda and be debated and acted upon by itself. Does any trustee wish to remove an item from tonight's consent agenda? Okay. Trustee approval of the consent agenda only pertains to those items that trustees legally have the right to approve under Montana Code annotated. Is there any objection to approving the consent agenda as presented? Seeing none, the consent agenda is. We do have a business, an action item before we enter into conversation with Stevensville Community Foundation. At the last meeting, we tabled the multi-district agreement with Montana School Unemployment Insurance Program. And so there were some questions. There was kind of some research that needed to be done and kind of wanting to know a little bit more about that.
There are two options in Montana. We could either use the Montana School Association, School Boards Association, Montana School Unemployment Insurance Program, which is specific to education employment, which is fairly nuanced because we have lots of employees that don't work on it. And so they understand that aspect of things. And so we do have this option, or we can go with the state of Montana. I would recommend that we use this option because they are familiar with school business. One of the questions that came from the contract was the ability to charge districts if the program became insolvent. They are in no danger of that. They have $8.3 million in equity, and they are not in a fear of that, but they said that that's highly unlikely that may happen. But we also get other resources, as you read in the narrative, from them. So legal support, legal documentation for different things, and just somebody that picks up the phone when you call.
Do you have a difference in cost?
I don't have a difference in cost. This is, I'm gonna guess that this is probably less expensive because the volume of school employees that are in this particular program. The other thing that I'll be honest with you, Tony, that impacts the business office is if we switch providers, they're gonna require all of us to learn a whole new program, a whole new system.
What is this causing?
We get charged quarterly, and right now we've been getting credit back. So every quarter we get credit. So obviously we take unemployment out of everybody's paycheck and we get it on a quarterly basis. And what they've been doing is, as long as our unemployment claims are low, we usually get credits back. So ours has been fairly low. And so we've been getting enough credit back that one quarter usually is credited back to us. So I would say that that is fairly good, but I couldn't tell you the exact number that we've been paying on an annual basis. I didn't ask that last year or ask at our last meeting. Otherwise I would have made sure that I had that number to provide you with it.
Let's say an employee in the district. Surveys from us, applies for our employees. How is this program? Is this program enforced versus the state's program?
When a person applies for unemployment, then they send us, automatically they send us an email, and then we fill out all of the paperwork pertaining to like their last check, everything, and the person has to answer a questionnaire, their work history with us, and we answer a questionnaire back, and then they decide they vet it, is what they vet whether or not that person is eligible for unemployment or not based on their school district. And educational people are, there are different rules that apply for whether or not they are eligible for unemployment.
Is that the same thing that the state would do?
Yeah, but, yeah.
So the issue becomes if there's a, see if I understand how this works. Billy Goff applies for unemployment. There's intent to deny for whatever reason. So now who becomes responsible for the process of listening to his due process? Is that what these people do?
Yes,
What would the state do that?
we have to go through the state and find out exactly how that process works with them.
So it is your choice. If you want to go with somebody else, then we don't sign the multi-year agreement and we start running our payroll through the state.
Fran?
This might be a repetitive question, but do we know how many schools in Montana participate in this program?
I don't know, and I don't want to guess, but I'm gonna guess that probably more than 90%.
Okay,
Nathan?
I'm going off of a couple of assumptions here, but as somebody that deals with unemployment through the state in 3 other businesses, each one of those businesses are treated as a separate entity. And I have personally 2 manufacturing companies that deal with the state. They're owned by the same people. However, when one company has somebody that goes through the unemployment process, that company's goes up to X.
Right.
And I think that what we're gaining here with being a part of, and this is the assumption part, but I think what we're gaining here going under the Montana Schools Unemployment Insurance is this net gets a lot wider. And when my company of 10 or my company of 20, when I have 2 people that file for unemployment, I can tell you that that gets exponentially more expensive. And I think that what happens here is when you have a company, look at Montana as a company, or however many schools participate in this, and you have 1,000, that gets absorbed in a lot different rate than a private entity. And I think that Montana unemployment insurance will treat us as a private entity.
What's the economy of scale?
Tony?
I had a couple, more than a couple questions, things I wanted to bring up. So it says this can be paid out of teachers' pension funds. So does this come out of the teacher's payroll or just come out of a teacher's pension fund? It says the program can issue bonds and raise money, so can they indebt us without us having any say? It says the contribution rates are adopted every year on July 1st. They can change them. They can change them in the middle of the year if they see fit to. And our obligation is a 3-year obligation. It says that this agreement is a direct financial guarantee to all present and former employees of all participating members of the program for the full amount of any and all liabilities or obligations, but not limited to any one of participating members or out of share. So essentially, you know, Billings West were to go bankrupt, which it's never going to, short of complete financial disaster. It just seems odd that we are liable for a ton of other schools. It has no mention of federal unemployment insurance. And so we've been paying unemployment insurance in our businesses, my wife and I, for 33 years. And there's always been federal unemployment insurance that goes with the state. And so I'm wondering how that's not mentioned in here anywhere at any time. The other thing, if you were to opt out of this, normally the money that you pay into unemployment insurance is cumulative and has a lot to do with the rates you get. And so back, if we paid in a lot of money, we had no claims, normally you would get money back. We get a rebate every, I don't know, probably not every quarter, I think once a year from state of Montana. So we never received a rebate from the federal government. The other thing is, you know, for liability, each member is responsible for the participating members' claims that exceed the liability cap. And so don't really know, they don't really say what the liability cap is here. It just seems like a very open-ended, and it may be the best deal for us. I'm not saying it's not. I don't know what the other number is. I don't know what the paperwork entails. But as a business person, if you were not in a government business where you knew all these people were going to be backed up, you would never in a million years sign something so open-ended. I'm going to sign a 3-year agreement and you have the right to change it every 6 months if you want to. I just could never do that. I don't see any business that could. Like I said, that being said, I don't know what the options are.
Do you think we should run it by VIA then? Is that what you're suggesting? I mean, we can stop and run it by VIA if that's what you think is the best alternative. I've worked at 2 other school districts, DeSmet for 5 years and Florence Carlton, and they both had NTSUIP for both those school districts, and they work the same way. But if you're not comfortable with it, they've said that they've been doing this for 30 years. They've had the same agreement that they had before. But if they're not comfortable with it, maybe what we should do is give it to VIA to take a look at, and then she can look at it and see what she thinks is best. That might be the best thing, because Dave and I couldn't read some of the legalese in that to differentiate from it. I mean, especially with the other school districts, I think that might be the best route if the trustees are not comfortable with it.
Stephanie?
I've dealt with work comp both in working in medical and billing, and I've worked with work comp as an employer. And having things be open-ended is pretty classic work comp in my experience. They do change their rules fairly often. my impression of these guys is that they've been fairly stable. It's been a good sign that we've been getting credits back. Reading the work comp policy that I sign as an employer, I am not seeing red flags in this contract.
I'm on their website here because I definitely don't know much about them either. They make a big deal about offering every member school 4-hour on-site training about what they do and for employees that are part of it. If we have them over, or do we know anything about that? But they would come at no charge to explain themselves.
How short a timeline are we on this? Do we know for
They
sure?
sent it in October and it was dated for July 1st is when they wanted it. You know, they actually sent it in October and then we presented it to you guys last meeting. So, I mean, the date on it is July 1st that they put on it, so. They were a few months after the date that they put on it.
So we're probably not under,
I mean, I think that they keep sending it to me to electronically from them. So I think they want it done as soon as they can.
So would it be out of line to find out what the other one, what this costs, what the other one costs? And maybe run it by VIA and see if there's more liability here than meets the eye. I mean, seems very favorable to them.
So you want a comparable cost and you want our attorney to look at contract.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, and I, you know, maybe this is the right thing to do. And then also, how are we paying federal unemployment? Because it's not in here.
Jennifer?
I just feel that we're kind of beating this around and taking extra time and time out of our administrators' schedule that, I mean, I think this is fairly standard. This is what most schools are doing, and I'm not sure why we are questioning using a service that is provided for school districts and wanting to change things, which is going to have a trickle down effect of just causing more issues for our school district in switching to a new system at this point. I just don't see the point of not going with what we have with an organization that has done good by us for many years.
Stephanie, then Nathan.
The other thing I was going to mention that I forgot, and I apologize. It also, in my experience as an employer, going down the rabbit hole with a new work comp company to get comps to try to shop around, it is a full medical exam. Like it's a full-time job to get all that information to them, for them to evaluate, for them to quote you. And then once they've quoted you, once you register with them, things are going to change very quickly anyway, likely.
It's very hard to get a price. You can't, to shop somebody and say, hey, this will be your price. And then after everybody's done, your price is
And the time commitment it takes to get that is immense.
Yeah.
And I do not employ very many people, so I can't imagine what it's like.
But
I'm
it
still
was-
scared.
Going back 2 meetings, I was under the impression that when we had items like this, we were to vote. And then we were going to,
Yes.
if something was over, and then we were going to talk about.
Yes. And Fran just pointed the same thing out. Dan, I know, so there's, yes, all correct. I've got a few things rattling around my head right now. One is, and Fran pointed out, really, we're at a question of whether we're gonna take this item from the table or not. So it doesn't kill it, we don't take it from the table, it just sits there, we haven't killed it. If there really is a lot that people want to look more into. If we take it from the table, then we need to, decide how we're going to act on it. And so that is one thing we're at. Thank you, Fran, for pointing that out. Two, we get, several guests to be here tonight so we can engage in a conversation. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm just gonna throw it out there. It doesn't seem like they're going to rip the rug out from under us if we don't sign this contract tomorrow. They'll just keep emailing you. Okay. But they're putting these contracts out to 300 districts. They're probably trying to collect it from everybody.
I have no idea how many districts.
Sure. So yes, that is, I appreciate that we've got a lot of comment. Dan was next. We are at a place where we need to formalize that and either make a motion to take it from the table or move on, but that's where we'd be at next. But Dan was next with that comment, but I'd like to move us more in that direction of an action than a comment.
We'll find out.
Okay. So,
I will be happy to make a motion if that's
Okay,
the appropriate time to
then,
do
okay.
so, Ben.
yep.
I move to renew the participation agreement between the Stevensville School District and the Montana Schools Unemployment Insurance Program.
Yeah, so we'd have to take it from the table first before we do that. So-
Okay.
So you can.
So I move to take it from the table.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to take this table item from last meeting from the table so we can have this discussion. So, all those in favor of taking that from the table, that doesn't pass it or fail, it just puts it on the floor. Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passed. All right. We are in place and to Nathan's point, it would be appropriate to have a motion to sign the contract or not. That would be the more appropriate thing to do at this time.
And I'll be glad to restate my motion.
Fran, the floor is yours.
I move to renew the participation agreement between the Stevensville School District and the Montana Schools Unemployment Insurance Program.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. So, at this point, we welcome discussion, further discussion on this or amendments to that motion moving forward. Dan?
I don't know anything about this. Other than what little I've heard today and the fact that it's existed for however long. We're dealing with a contract that we signed here 2 years ago, that we're now having issues with. I don't have a problem with saying, can we get a little more information here? Just so I feel comfortable, and so if somebody were to ask me, well, what is this? And I can halfway intelligently say that's what it is, because I'm still not 100% sure that this isn't a clearinghouse that deals with issues that would occur when an individual applies for unemployment insurance or applies for unemployment. So I don't have a problem if there's no need to do this immediately, but maybe getting a little more information, being a little more informed, making an informed decision. So we're not sitting here, and I don't think we will. But I don't want to be revisiting another contract in 6 months or another year and saying we are dealing with something again.
Chair would certainly entertain a motion to that. That doesn't pass or fail. Tony?
So for me, the reason I brought it up and the reason I want to go over it further and figure out more what's going on. My wife and I just paid around $26,000 in property taxes in a couple of counties in the state of Montana. And people are getting tax bills and wondering how they're going to pay them, what they're going to do. We have teachers that are underpaid. I couldn't even tell you pension fund or if it's coming out of a general fund. There's so much that I don't know about this. And so I feel like it's an absolutely irresponsible thing for me to do, to vote for spending money or doing something until I at least know what I'm spending the money on or why I'm doing it. So I am absolutely against renewing this until we get some more information. And it may be the very best thing out there. I just absolutely don't know. So until I know, I feel like it's worthy of our time to figure it out.
Further comment, public comment. Right, so as it stands, unless there were another motion made at this time, we will vote to adopt the contract or reject the contract as written. Dan?
So let's, suppose we reject this. Where does that leave us then?
I think it's easy, the biggest problem in Montana as a whole is our insurance in any respect when it comes to any entity that we have. The problem is to answer your question, you have the state.
Right.
And
So
there's just not a lot of options in the state. And unfortunately, I think that's where it leads. This, at least in my opinion, when it's industry specific, you have an option. Because I can tell you the other option, it ain't great.
that's my problem.
I feel you. I mean, I get it, but.
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, no, it sucks. It sucks.
And I think we have a motion and we need to vote on that motion
Okay.
one way or
Yep,
another.
and that we are,
And then we know what the board is feeling, and then if the motion does not pass, then we move on
Right.
to what's
Then the
next.
conversation starts.
I want to propose one wrinkle to that, and I want to respect that it's not really my place to debate all that things necessarily, but I'd like to see us take advantage of the free training that they offer. Then maybe if we continue with them, then maybe we can learn them since they offer it and it's free. So I just throw that out there. So, okay, all right, no further board comments.
Just for clarification, do you want the board to be trained or us?
I think be open to the board. I'd be very,
I want the staff.
well, I'm guessing that's what it's for, is for staff. But if they're gonna make a trip to Stevensville, I bet they can answer the questions.
And when do you want it done? Do you want it done during 3 hours on a Wednesday, or when do you want it done?
I won't get that specific. I'm sure they have busy schedules, so something that will be worked out. But Billy said sooner the better. Just so we know. Okay, all right. No further board comment or public comment. We will vote. This is a vote to sign the multi-district agreement with Montana School Unemployment Insurance Program. All right. Nathan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Billy?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
I will vote aye. Fran?
Aye.
Tony?
Nay.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Dan? And that is a vote of 6-2 in the affirmative to pass. I do hope we can invite the group so we can learn more about what they do. So, all right, thanks all. Let's move then to our last item of the night, which is a work session style informational item discussion with the Stevensville Community Foundation. And the board and land that is in the possession of the Community Foundation at the south end of Park Street. And some other discussions have happened with committees, but good to have all groups together. So I apologize. I don't know everybody, but I feel like introductions would be great. And we're happy to introduce ourselves. I know we have nameplates too, but yes.
Chad Smith, I'm current president.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks for being here.
Sandy Ballum, I'm the secretary and I'm the local commercial lender for First Security Bank here at Stevensville.
Okay.
I'm Tracy Ann Johnston, I own Iger Realty, and I'm the treasurer of the Stevensville Foundation. And then my colleague here.
So I'm Darwin Harris. I'm not sure which hat I'm wearing here tonight, but I'm
I'm
here
not
to
sure
help.
either, yeah.
So I'm a broker and appraiser. I helped develop this cadastral mapping system that's up here. So got a couple of years. You ask me a question, I'll tell you if I know or if I don't. Be totally honest.
I asked her to kind of come and answer maybe questions that we're not catching on to, so.
Thank you.
So Dave, do you want to talk about the facilities we were talking about?
Yeah.
we had?
Yeah,
Okay.
so this conversation started well, it's been several weeks now, several weeks ago in a facilities meeting. Really just preliminary talking about whether or not there was interest from the school district to do a land swap that is at the end of Park Street with the community foundation and what that land would look like if that were to happen with the Stevensville School District. And I felt like the meeting, there was definitely some interest from both sides to entertain an idea. And in that committee, I felt like it was appropriate to bring it out and have the conversation in public so that we could generate some ideas. I have in your packet listed a bunch of brainstormed questions, things that could be discussed, but I think what the bigger picture, the bigger question for us to discuss tonight is if there is a land swap, if that benefits the community foundation, does that benefit the district? And really looking at this from strengths from both entities to see what makes sense and to see if we can start to narrow down what that may look like if it's of interest to the board. So
Thank you.
that's a summary.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
summary. So we own 3.54 acres at the corner of Park Avenue and North Fork Road. I think you're all familiar with it. There's a pre-existing house that's on it. We were using it as a rental, but since April, we haven't had anybody living in there because there were some safety items that I, as a property manager / real estate agent, felt concerned about being on the board. I just figured if we're not going to put the money into getting those things done, it's probably best just to move the person out and winterize it. It's an outsitter. As a board, we made the decision. We had the SC Cubed is what I call it, Stevensville Community Foundation Complex Committee that came out of the Stevensville Community Foundation years ago. And for years, they've been trying to put together something to build on the property. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's just, we only have 3.54 acres. So that is kind of solved now. And we've actually taken the property back under the SCF umbrella. And we're just decided that we're either going to do this or we're going to move on and we're going to find a different piece of property. And for us, we think finding a different piece of property is the way to go, really. So we made a decision to sell the property at the corner. Now it does attach to your current school property, so it's all adjoining and it's all zoned the same PLI zoning for public land institution type things. So what we were thinking was, Sandy and I drove out down, is it ALC, the road down there, and there's a lot of wetland, as you all know, going down past the Pantry Partners and everything. It's kind of a natural drainage right through there. So when Sandy and I got out closer to where the existing fields are and everything, where the parking lot is and everything, we thought that's probably the better place if we were going to consider talking about land swapping or something, is having area out there that we could build a community center out there and kind of transition it all in with your fields and parking lot area and have a community center that's actually nearby where you have events, sporting stuff that comes to town. I mean, we just want to get a community center built. We're back to kind of the basics now on it, in my opinion, I guess, is we'd like to just get a building built and then something we can add on to later as we need to expand. We had quite the plan. They did, the community did, which I was not on that committee. That was getting up to like $3 million community center. And I just don't think Stevensville needs to have a $3 million community center built. I think we just need to get it going, like Lone Rock did. I mean, it was a simple process. They got it up and it's running. And we can add on or do more later. Classes, we had a University of Montana was going to participate in all of this, but that was back when the whole school board trustee board must have been around and we all couldn't come to an agreement at some point in time. So we've been back and forth on this for years. And now we just want to kind of move on. So either we're going to sell the property and put earmark the money from proceeds that we get, and we're just gonna find another piece of property and buy, and eventually build. The possibility of coming up with the land swap if the school came up. It doesn't really matter to us one or the other. If it works for you guys, and then we can try to make something work for us too. I think it'd be a great little fit if we could. But it doesn't have to happen. So that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you.
As of April, as of April 1st, or right around in there. Since the property has been used as a residential, rental, it can be used that way for or if it sits empty for 365 days, it will revert back to the zoning district it is currently in. So unless we get this sold or land swap with you guys, we have to have this all finished and done out by then. Otherwise, we're gonna have to like run it out for a little bit, keep that, and then go back. And we have found out, well, Darwin has found out that with the town of Stevensville, it's gonna be more cost effective for us to take it out of the PLI zoning or one PLI zoning in order to sell it for more money, because it would change the use of the property. And the, we'd want to sell it to some sort of builder or something, they could build something on it, more homes, something like that, because it is annexed into the town of Stevensville. It's not in the county anymore. We do have town water there, but we have a septic system and we have redone it. A couple summers ago, I think it was.
Yes.
So there is a functional system and everything. The house is livable. I just felt that there were some things that need to be done to make it safer, and we all decided not to do it. Sorry, Nate.
How much property are you guys thinking that would fit your needs?
Honestly, I don't really know. You know, Sandy and I just drove out in that particular area. I know that, I don't know what your future plans for that whole sports area was. I don't really know.
And we do want the facility, like Joyce Ann said, to be able to expand. So, you know, we wouldn't want to, you know, trade for a 4 to 5 acre piece that essentially would put us
Or
in the same
limit.
situation that we're at now, where we're kind of limited. You know, we don't acres by any means or anything like that, but just, you know, we definitely want to be in a position where we're not years after the facility is built, looking at where we can move from there.
If it gets to be 5 to maybe 10,000 square feet, and then we have to accommodate the number of use parking.
Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from.
So,
You know, there's a big difference.
yeah, this is
between 5
kind of
and
more
50
just
acres.
like a discussion, just to see if the interest was even there.
Yeah,
And then if we went from there and say, you know, bring out a surveyor, we could all walk out there and, you know, kind of get an idea. I mean, we have lots and lots of plans for different things that the community complex was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about amphitheater, you know, outdoor theater area. It just really kind of depends on who wants to participate and how much we want to do or how little we want to do. But we really would like to see a community center built.
yeah.
That's really all and that's why we've just taken this back,
Mhm.
because it wasn't, not that they weren't making great efforts. It's just, we ran into what, $350,000 bill that the town wanted to charge us to bring in the sewer. And we just can't put that on anything else.
And to answer you, like I said, we need to get, like I said, 50 acres. No. But at the 3.5 and the plans that we had and the parking needs we had, it was tight. So if we were looking at even 7.5 or 10 is probably feasible.
Good.
And I don't even know if that's too big.
Yeah, I'd rather be too big building.
So,
Like, you know, we had discussions with the library about, you know, joint building. You know, they had a different direction that they wanted to go, but even when they had their people looking at that, you know, combining community center with the library at the current location was just not feasible size-wise.
Is there any interest, and I'm just asking the question, is there any interest in a shared facility that could serve as a community center and also serve potentially district
we're open to any.
Yeah, that's actually years ago, that was the path we were going down with the school.
Yeah.
And it fell apart.
We had the University of Montana on board. They were gonna, bring in all the wiring and set up like the extension classes and everything, because that was before the Bitterroot Community College, which Darwin, I believe you're
I'm
on
the chair of that.
chair of that. So things just fell apart back in the day. So, and none of us participated in any of that. That was a whole different group out of SCF. And most of those people are retired or it's just defunct now. So I don't know.
So I think Dave's comment is super relevant. I think there's an opportunity if we can, keep a hold of ourselves and not blow things up too much. To do something in the community foundation, to have a community center. There's intricacies that would have to be addressed so that events could go on in an appropriate manner. There would probably need to be, there's lots of little things and details that would need to be addressed, but I think it could be done. And I think it could be done as part of the complex so that the parking you have could be used and showed. I know there's some money out there available to do things like put the supply ditch in a box culvert so that changes the dynamics of the school grounds dramatically. There's a lot of opportunities, but none of them are going to happen as fast as what you're talking about here today. And then the other thing I think is that when you look at the two pieces of land, I think it's a hard sell for you to gain enough real estate for the school to give up real estate that's almost equal in value to give you up more real estate than you have now. So, and there's a couple different ways of looking at that, but essentially, there's sewer and water across the fence from some of our real estate. So that makes it kind of valuable in that regard. But
Can I address that a little bit? So, yes, you can see it, but you can't touch it. So right now anyway, so the idea is that there's kind of a moratorium on that right now because there's no water usage within the court district for that. So you've got to go through that process to get this is the use area, which is why that subdivision went in, probably not the right way. So you've got to clean up all that information. As far as the ditch goes, it might, change the groundwater, but it's not going to change anything when we have water and sewer that's supplied by the town eventually, right? So as far as like putting it in a ditch, I don't know that you're going to need to do that. That's a septic thing that would, be an issue if you're going to put a septic in there. But I think you're going to want to hook up to the city sewer and water system so that you have the ability to put in a lot of bathrooms, things like that, that can help facilitate what you've got out there. Is if you're going to do a combo tank.
well, that's another reason that I think it's important. I'm going to try to do something here that I think will really benefit the community. And I think it could really benefit the school. I think the school's on a good path. I think it could be a huge benefit across the board. I know there's a tremendous shortage of room for events. We fight over the event center about every other week, it seems like. Hamilton's got the auditorium, which is really nice. It's about 700 people, but it's also very formal. It's good for speaking engagement or a flight, and that's about it. Just out the window. And I see places where, this could be, any kind of an event, and in the meantime, it could be a lunchroom for kids, or it could be inside tennis courts, or, the uses of it, if there was some thought into the design. And as you say, very basic, with the idea that you could add to it later, because it needs to be inexpensive and it would require everybody involved trying to raise money for it, because taxpayers are enough for a little while. It's going to be a massive.
And Tony, on that, can you tell them about the town of Stevensville and what's going on with the wells? Because of the certain lack of services.
I'm not sure what the question is, sorry.
That they are with this whole Logan Middleburg Court expansion because of the, Ellison, the old ranch that was subdivided. And it's now, what is it, Creekside Meadows, that they can't expand.
But at this point, they cannot, that is correct.
Correct.
So there's one development and it's in the middle right now, I think, of the discovery stage for litigation. Because they were promised the fact that they could have water services there and then that got taken back and no more expansion. So that developer, I think, is, losing money because he can't get it developed. So I think he's going after, that, but it's, might tie things up for a little while with trying to get the water services out to that particular development. Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Asking for?
So that was a concern that we had, after Darwin's done all this research with the town, is that gonna hold up a development? Should we sell it straight out to somebody else to try to develop it if this wasn't of interest to you guys?
Well, I know they're, not to underestimate some of my right-wing friends, they're working very hard to cure this problem in the legislature, through various means that I don't particularly agree with, but, that being said, I would rather do things right here where we had services, where we have everything that we need that's available. There's really some tremendous opportunities if we can have the patience to put this together and not let it get out of control and implode under its own weight, because sometimes you get too many architects at the table. Massive and it literally collapses under its own weight. So
yeah,
I would be happy to try to promote this in the community and, given the authority from the board and work with people. However that works, I would invite any and all to collaborate, but I think we need to get our ducks in a row before we talk about it a lot, because there'll be plenty of naysayers about anything you want to do.
Question. Initially, it was kind of like the land swap, and I was of the impression that the school found a value of the land we had, its location, and that there was maybe in the back of the mind a specific use for that land because of its location and what you have. And I guess tonight I'm getting the impression more of interest in sharing on a project, sharing its usage, and not so much that our land more interest you. And so I feel like I just want to make sure I'm understanding kind of what path.
I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah, I don't think that corner parking
Has a-
over, no.
Yeah.
It only does from a super long-term, when we're all dead footprint. So, and I've said this to this board, I'm curious to see what could develop so that some school board 30, 40 years from now can say, boy, that's great. We have that piece that's never been, it's just dry and full of knapweed, but now we're in a place where we were.
to do something.
Yes, the school, the community, that was important and we did the right thing, which as the school board did in the 90s when they bought the sister's place on ALC Way and bought all that. And that sat undeveloped for a super long time, but that became the property of the school in the 90s. Until something could be done.
And I know you're using the house just to the north of where our property's at to house one of your employees right
That's right.
now.
That's
And
right.
we've used it in the past for teachers or something
Yeah.
temporarily
That's
until they
right.
found housing. So this could be another option also for that, with that house. Another option. I don't know what else you guys would use it for otherwise.
Yeah, we're not good at that. We don't love being property managers, but we do acknowledge how bad the housing situation is in this zip code. And so we do like it when our employees can be here close.
So otherwise, on that note, if you could just not do land swap with you at all, and we just decide to sell this, we're gonna angle towards finding a builder, developer that's gonna bring in
Housing
more
that way,
development,
sure.
more housing for the community.
So, Jennifer, did I see your hand or?
Do you guys already have funds set aside for the community center or?
But we have a long ways to go. And
Yeah.
ideally, if we can first find big donor for some more seed money would be great, but, you know, we were actually in a position where we were ready to break ground, you know, on a smaller facility, but that's when the city kind of pulled back on the sewers.
The problem is the town of Stevensville isn't equipped to follow through on what the code actually states, that they are to provide services to land that they annex into town. So when the SCF board bought this property, they just jumped the gun, annexed it in, and county's like, yeah, you know, we'll take it. Well, they don't have the services to provide to us, and that's how it's supposed to work. And now they're saying, no, it's on you. Well, that, it's not.
Yeah.
So
And-
for us, and we, like we decided, it's just too cramped. I'm concerned about the traffic also. We have 2 new culverts put in, or approaches, and reran the ditch, water rights already. I mean, we've done what needs to be done in order to start developing it. But, with all the ideas, and then we went back out in the community and said, what does everybody want? And you get everybody else's ideas, and then it's everything we've already worked on for 10 years. And you're not gonna make everybody happy. And then we went out to the big donors, and they said, yeah, you can put my name on the building, but I want you to do it this way. And, yeah, so we're not gonna please everybody. So we just wanna get it done and going. But, if this doesn't, if the land swap type thing, which I see where Sandy is hearing this also, doesn't seem to be appealing to you, then I guess we would say if we wanted to do a project with you and kind of make it what Tony was talking about, kind of do something together. Otherwise, we have to decide whether we're just going to sell it directly or not.
The water line from the well field runs down the ALC way.
Oh, okay.
And it goes to the end of the ALC way, then it comes across behind down here
Oh,
to the school and ties it down here.
okay.
There is no water in the sewer that is out there on the ALC way.
Okay.
I'm sorry, no sewer. There is a main line from the water bill.
For the water.
Yeah.
Okay. So that'd be another question we'd have to look into then.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if this, again, this particular parcel has no specific interest to the school, and we did go ahead and sell it, I don't think that means that we still wouldn't be interested in participating.
So I, bear with me a second here, but I actually would like, there still may be a land swap involved in this, because whatever building that this school, that this ground is sets on is going to be needed, that outline of that building is going to be needed to be deeded to somebody other than the school.
Right.
Correct.
And so at the risk of, you know, getting things thrown at me here, I think the piece of land is very valuable to the school long-term. I think that trying to figure out ways to consolidate our campus is better than trying to figure out ways to sprawl it out. Sooner or later, the railroad will be moved. So this could be a very cool campus if you end up to the route of the railroad, the supply ditch and a culvert. So I would rather have that land than the land up there, but that doesn't mean I want to trade it to you. There's a possibility that maybe at some point, and I think the land continues to gain in value more than anything else that we have. And so I think that just holding still and trying to figure out how to put this together rather than trying to sell it and have cash laying around. People tend to lose cash when they can find a way to get a hold of it. And so I just think it would be better for the long term getting this done to not sell that land, to end up trading it for whatever this building sits on, however that works exactly, using our staff basically to administer the building. So there's got somebody to take care of the building, some way to deal with it. Parking, whether maybe it's just gravel parking, I don't know how all that, lots of things to work out. But I think it could be done but you would need to, you know, we need something to tell the public why we're giving up a piece of land that has lots of services for a piece of land that has none, or we can't just give it to somebody, I believe. So there's things that will need to be looked into, but I think if we can remain thoughtful, this is a doable deal. So
Is
I
there,
would
is
make
there,
a comment of, if the momentum behind a shared sort of facility were to develop between the two entities, closer to campus would be more beneficial. And I think that's what exactly indicating is that if we're closer to campus, then the facility does become accessible to students during the school day. Whereas if it is up on the other side of ALC Way or up in that area, then it's really difficult to get students there. And, and I'm envisioning things like a concert during, or a choir concert or a band concert or something like that, maybe to do that. And potentially, and Tony hinted at this too, is what if it serves as a cafeteria for our students? And I'm just brainstorming here, but if it's going to be something that develops as a shared facility, I think it makes better sense to be closer to our current facility than further away.
So, take our piece and possibly your north piece there.
or,
That
well,
kind of,
and I'm so grateful we can just talk openly. I don't think any of it, we don't have anything to hide, not picking that up either. Or way closer than that, like literally where we're doing stuff here. Because to make it work, to make something work, but to Tony's point, we would need the foundation to make something work. Because I don't think a community center in the truest sense of the definition works in a state like Montana if you don't have, whether it's alcohol, whether it's other things at it, which that's a no-go. That's a stop dead in the tracks for the school to have something. But if the community foundation owns something and it's a mixed use facility. And so that would be and that's kind of my curiosity. Is it more important to sell the land and get maximum value out of it? Or is the bigger goal to get something built? And you don't have to answer that. I don't mean to put you on the spot like that, but that's just kind of a question.
I can somewhat answer that in that we've had a couple other opportunities. And we've kind of gotten to the point where let's liquidate that because we didn't feel it's going to work. So that we do have it in the bank. We're a foundation, so it's not going to get spent on anything but.
Yep.
And we could act quickly on some land. And we've had others approach us too, saying there's some gifting possibilities. So then that profits can go into the building. And so by sitting here, kind of a dead duck, but
And
selling it,
we
we've got.
don't have cash. That means that by law, we can't even carry it over from year to year. And it's just
Yeah.
not how schools work. But we do have land.
We have to be cognizant of the fact that you guys have plans and you have needs, and your timeline can move faster than what we can offer.
and I don't know how long you've been on this board. I didn't participate with the polls and all that back then, like Fred Thomas and all of them did.
Right.
But I think that drove up for years.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it was just a no. And SCQ did all the other research and had all these other people lined up, ready to go, and the school just went. And I don't want to repeat that again.
Sure.
That's wrong.
And that's absolutely fair. Yeah. And I know some of that history too. Dan knows it better. Dan was on a school committee at that time.
I was the liaison for the school district,
Oh, okay,
but all of this was planned
gotcha.
as part of the committee that was out there. Almost immediately. I don't know why. I don't know what's some whole or not. But for rumors of other factors.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was part of that process when it was initiated. Or should be.
So is it Darwin, right?
Oh, yeah.
You were gonna say something.
I don't have to, but I'm thinking, sitting here thinking and listening, to different comments. And what I have to tell you is that both of these parcels of land, the one that you would potentially trade with, they're all in the same zoning district, right? They're all PL Aye. Which means public lands and industry. And there's limited uses that you can do on that land, no matter what. So if there's a chance to join forces, then you've got an opportunity to both, mix some funds, make some big things happen, or bigger things than any one side could do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if this group sells that piece of land and then goes somewhere else, then that's lost.
Right.
But right now, it's kind of like a straight trade across. I don't believe that there's any more value or less value in the land because of the fact that the utilities that are available are the same. You have water. You don't have sewer at either place. So right until you figure that part out, or the town steps in and helps you, get your sewer, you're kind of in the same spot.
Right.
Unless
we brought something closer, like right out this way,
I get your
And we tap-
closeness, and I understand.
and we
that.
tap into what we have.
That makes a big
built.
difference in the utility of what you can do.
Right. We've gone to this campus
Yeah.
here where we're at.
Because the line comes so far down Park and then it just ends.
Right, and obviously we have it in the
Right.
buildings we're sitting in right now, so we can,
Correct.
then we're close.
Yeah.
Vicky?
So if you do the land swap, does this have to go to a vote of the public to swap the land? Because Hamilton just had to get permission from the public to be able to sell the building, should they be able to fund a bond. So I'm just sitting here going, do you have to take this to the,
I think it's a good question. I don't know the answer. It's a good question, and I think we can look into it. I know from legal training we've had, where it's briefly been mentioned that schools in Montana can purchase land that adjoins them without a vote of the public, but that's purchase. And so land that adjoins can be purchased, but if it doesn't adjoin, and so I don't know if that's what Hamilton went through, because they were selling a piece that didn't touch anything else that they owned. So then they had to go ask the public for it.
And I would think it probably might have to, only because the deed, the ownership, right? Would be in a different area.
Well, the school, so it's a school that owned that. Here's another hat I wear. I'm on city council in Hamilton. So, I don't think the school had to approach the public. I think they did it out of respect and making sure that that fit in with their idea of going after a really large mill levy in the future. They want to get that backing and that support, because if you don't liquidate those assets that you have that are non-producing, and then you go to the public and ask for that mill levy, this isn't making sense. Like, you could sell that and lower the cost. So that's what they've been doing. In my understanding of it, it's not a have to, it's a should, because then you get that goodwill getting started, and that's what they were after.
Okay,
So that's my understanding.
Makes sense.
thank you. Good to know. Stephanie?
So my biggest wish for you guys is that you just get your facility built.
Yes.
Thank you.
And wherever you want it, and you get gifted land, if it's from a land swap, if it's right out this door. But my biggest wish for me and for students is that it is something that is at least, however this ends up going forward, at least close by. And I think I said it to utilities meeting a month ago. I just think, okay, so the library is a whole separate thing, but I can't separate them. But the district, the library, the community center being within walking distance of each other. And I know that's not exactly going to happen now with the library, but.
Have you heard anything about the library?
Oh.
We haven't.
We
I
have,
guess no.
Rumors.
They have property that somebody is offering them.
Oh, so they're looking at possibly a spot now.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I don't know if it's 100% finalized, but the last I heard.
So because of the zoning that we're in, if this didn't work out or show any interest here, then I was just gonna go to them and see if they wanted to purchase the property.
Yeah.
Because then we don't have
Because
to.
like I said, I don't know if
do
it's
the
a
zoning.
100% or not. I'm not
Right.
sure exactly where. I'd have to ask that.
Okay.
Do you guys have a minimalist estimate on what you think it takes to get to a building up and what size that building is? The reason I ask this is because I think that there's a lot of money out there floating around to get things done. If you kind of have a plan together and So I don't think the public will balk at all if they get to have a building and they don't have any taxes to have to pay for it. You know, I got $400,000 to buy portable bleachers for rodeo grounds last week, so I know there's money out there to do things.
Right.
I just don't know if you're wanting to spend, you know, $2 million for a facility, then that's a reach, you know.
Yeah, no, I,
If you're happy with an event center similar to Hamilton's, maybe with a taller wall or something, so you could have sporting events in it, that could be added on to it. If you're happy to start somewhere, I guess I would like to know.
yeah, and I think, you know, the, kind of the last, rough, you know, figures, were, you know, roughly $1 million was kind of to get an entry level, you know, and I believe, don't quote me, but I believe, you know, we're looking at like 6,000 to 8,000 square feet. You know, we started out much bigger than that, but, you know, with the idea that, yeah, it'd be very, you know, designed where it's easy to, add on to.
Kitchen facilities,
Yeah, kitchen.
bathrooms, handicap, whatever was needed, was kind of the basics, what we were trying to, we were thinking, okay, let's just go for $1 million. And build everything that we can with
Well,
that.
we did have,
So-
you know, we had, you know, some rough quotes from some of the, you know, construction companies and stuff you know, a lot of that though, you know, and that's where a lot of the, surveys and stuff with the community, of course, you know, there wasn't a consensus, of course, on what style of building and, you know, what materials, and a lot of people, of course, wanted, you know, rock, you know, stone, and I mean, just, you know,
Timber frame.
the double, yeah, timbers and stone and stuff that just, it's not, we can't start there, and unless, like say, unless a huge donor does step up, but to get just a good, solid working facility.
It would look nice.
Yeah.
Blend in with the community.
You know, I think, yeah, it was
Look like
roughly.
Montana, but not industrial. This
Correct.
kind of was the,
Yeah,
Fran?
So there's been a lot of talk about the property on ALC, but there hasn't been a lot of talk about other parcels of land that we were given pictures of. And one of the ones that I'm looking at right now is, and I think it's the house right there on Park where the softball field is. And that house has been condemned. Is that correct? The house that's right there?
Grayish blue house, is that?
Not the one we're renting.
Yeah.
It's not the one where, but it's right there on the
It's
side.
not livable. We have some storage in it.
Okay, so, I mean, I guess one of the things that I'm sitting here thinking is, I don't know that I would want to swap. I don't know that I would be, I have this problem with swapping land when it's right in the middle of our land, because I remember when we were doing the construction, you have, this is owned by this person, this is owned, and we have this dotted stuff going on our school, on our property, and I'd like to move away from that. And so I don't want to necessarily swap, but I'm sitting here thinking if that property was sold, if we're thinking about maybe doing something jointly, if that property was sold and that money's going to be earmarked for a community center, then is there a possibility of us making some kind of an agreement with that property on Park that we own to provide the land so the community center can be built?
Well, I think I follow what you're saying, and I agree with lots of parts of it. I think that's the part though, back to if it is the community center that was talked about, and I know what you're talking about 20, 25 years ago, the school can't own it. There has to be a swap in there somewhere. We got to
So
get it
we
out of our
couldn't-
name.
So we
If
could
it's a true
own the
community center,
property.
otherwise it becomes another school facility.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got to get it out of our title.
Okay, and so my concern when we're looking at this, just so that I'm on the same page with everybody and everybody knows where I'm at, is that I would love to have the community center right here in the
Right.
middle of our
Or
school
close,
district,
yeah,
right, or
close, yep,
close to
yep,
it.
Yep.
But what I don't want to happen is to have the school and then have the somebody else own property smack dab in the middle of.
Breaking up your footprint.
Yeah, I'm not for that. That is a concern, a huge concern for me. I don't want to have an uneven footprint
I understand.
in the middle of our property. So,
And I guess that's why Sandy and I took a drive out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's,
right.
and you didn't do anything wrong at all by doing that,
Oh,
because you didn't know we were thinking of this closer thing, that we were absolutely talking about that to begin with, but we kind of had some just casual conversation about, could there be something more beneficial for all parties involved and bring it in closer and address some of the sewer concerns? Not that we know for a fact, but tap in, but we know we have it, and we know we have it at a scale that, you know, serves, what, 1,200 users a day on this campus here, something like that. So, Vicki?
I'm not as concerned about the,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
This, I mean, this may not be anything that would even facilitate a community center on Cather's property, which, well, it's your property, but it used to be. Were you short like parking area? Because maybe the school could go in and join with like a parking area behind the yellow house that would help facilitate,
Once again,
the baseball field, the community center, but you wouldn't be.
And that definitely got talked about. I mean, we talked about the same thing. Came and talked about a library with us, was could we do something like that? It doesn't solve the how many $1,000 was the question with it?
Oh, the sewer, the septic? Oh.
375. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help with the 350, and we don't have the 350 to bring the sewer in.
Put in a sewer system rather than deal with the city.
I don't know if they'll let you do it for a building that big.
Yeah.
I don't think the county will allow that. Yeah, there's no field you could get big
We
enough.
talked about de-annexing from the city. So, but if we go that route, then
Commercial
you're
septic.
only back down to 3.54 acres and you have to have 1 acre for a wellness septic. So now you've only got 3 buildable areas, and I guarantee you that ditch leaks.
Right.
So it's not like it's gonna be, that ditch is gonna be relined and everything. You're gonna get 2 more septic perks on there for the County. And you can get more housing if you leave it within the town. So we're just at this weird,
I know.
unfortunately, there wasn't anybody on the board back then when we bought this property that looked ahead to the future of that and discussed this with the town.
I know.
Darwin?
Sorry, I feel like I just need to try to say stuff that everyone's on. So I did verify with Tom, it was just a public approval thing, you know, that sale, and it wasn't legally required or
No,
anything like that.
thank you.
Yeah, I figured I'd just go to him and then I'd know for sure. But I thought that's what it was. As far as the land goes, you know, when you start talking about density and what you can do with a piece of ground, you have to be annexed in order to get to that density level that makes it sexy enough for the next, sorry if I used the wrong word, but to get that developer to come in there and really grow that highest and best use potential, right? So in this instance, you go through a potential, or these individuals could, you know, own that piece. They go through, you know, a land adjustment or get it out of the zoning that it's currently in, and then it's $350,000 for a development if you're going to add 24, 30, 50 units, whatever the maximum highest and best use is. $350,000 for the infrastructure is nothing. I mean, it becomes a different ballgame. But then it takes it out of that PLI zoning, right, and puts it into that. I would assume they would go for the highest density they can get if it was a developer that makes it.
Right.
So you want a lot more money there, and it's not even near what we would talk about with an exchange on the inner workings of the school in that same PLI zoning. Does that make sense?
I see.
Right.
So, maybe we should run this idea, but I know Cal Poly sits on private real estate. They have a 100-year lease that they renew whenever they see fit to. They got renewed, I don't know, about 1997 or something. And I think it's $1 is what they pay for their 100-year lease. I guess I would like to run that by and make sure that Because I still think that it has to be near the school, or it's not worth doing. If you have to
Yeah.
bus the kids down the street,
Right.
it's not effective, for anything that the school does, with rare exception, I would think. But if it's, you know, if it's out here, on the practice field, I think that it's accessible a lot. Or if it ends up being an addition on where our gymnasium is, I think it's a huge,
Vicky, there has to be a tiny, there has to be at least some open to being legal.
Vicky.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, yeah, sorry. We have all these laws, there's all these state laws. We can't have a meeting if we don't have a door open. But
That's okay. He
he
opened.
opened this one, but we have to have a door.
I would really like to pursue it. We could talk about this, but I love the project. I think it does amazing things to school, and I think we can find the money outside the community to fund the project. If we can keep it, you know, within reason and
Working with the school district would give us better grant possibilities.
No.
We know that, because just trying to go after grants just for a community center, it was very difficult. So that's why we were trying to either get together with the school way back when, then we went to the library or the theater, or there was something else. I forget what it was. But anyway, when you have some sort of other public interest, fire department, then it changes the grant possibilities for us for applying.
yeah, I think the money could be rounded up relatively quickly to do this.
There's some positivity if we are tapping into parking we've got. I mean, that doesn't strike you as a negative or,
No,
Brings the cost
as
down.
long as it works for
right? I mean, I guess
both of us.
I said that kind of in a dumb way because it's obvious that it would, but what I really meant by that was understanding that we'd be talking about something that during the school day kind of has this school day thing going on that we do up here,
Right.
but it's this multi-use facility when it's not. And so, you know, and obviously there'd be a lot of things that be worked out, but
It definitely would be something that's larger than the, St. Mary's.
yes, which
Services
the, right,
now.
right, which is the
That
only
would-
game in town, yeah.
Yeah, but then you have that same type of kitchen thing, you have actually, handicap facility
Yep.
for bathrooms
Yep.
and all that type of thing. So
Yep.
it would be larger. We wouldn't be, and we want to make sure we're not taking away from that either. Because we don't want that to, be a conflict, but there's plenty of events, there's plenty of uses
Yes.
that it's growing and there's a need for it
Yes,
still.
yes.
And we just want to see it through.
We talk about, and so I'm just wanting to gauge some, to level set a little bit. We talked a fair amount tonight. We've talked previously about what Hamilton has with the Farmer State Bank Center, formerly the First Interstate Bank building. So if that's their community center and you're bringing things back to basic to get something off the ground, is that wildly different than when you think of something basic to get off the ground? Is what they have similar to that, or you're thinking something way different?
I would say
It's similar, but I think
Pretty
more
similar.
finished,
Yes.
more interior finish,
Okay.
more,
So
You could
kind
have
of,
a- you could
the
have a
open metal trusses, but a little less industrial inside, but
Yeah.
commercial kitchen,
so if you wanted
flat
to-
floor.
family reunions or even a wedding or an anniversary that,
Partitions to be able to have
Mhm.
different size meetings or even
Okay,
but yeah,
concurrent
same,
meetings.
okay.
potentially.
I appreciate you answering, because I didn't want to leave tonight, and because I keep thinking of that building. And then if you guys are thinking something way different, then we'd be
Yeah, I
way off.
mean, not like the fairgrounds building per se, but you could have it all open, but then, the Bitter River Inn where they have the concrete
Yeah.
rooms, you can pull
Right.
we were talking about
The air walls. The air
those kind of
walls,
things, just kind of a general, kind of a mix of it all. But not having the real tall ceilings like the St. Mary's, place down there.
Everything like the Lone Rock Community Center, but bigger.
I've never been in there, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've
been in, yes.
Pretty, yeah, that's.
I mean, it's
probably-
kind of a big open area with the kitchen, a couple bathrooms.
Bathroom,
that-
yeah, it's basically coats and bathrooms, the kitchen, and then the big open
Yeah.
area.
And an easy type building setup that you could build off.
Add the
You know,
wings.
whether you, whichever way you need to go.
Kind of start with the rectangle and then.
Yes, and if later this addition here has got a higher arc type ceiling, so it's more of a theater type,
Mhm.
you know, for performing arts or whatever, like I said, but being able to then branch off, still partition small, but yes, just.
Darwin?
Sorry, I just want one more thing, and I'll try to shut up. My thought of what you're talking about is you could have a piece of ground and more similar to a townhome than any other type of ownership where the community center is on a piece of ground that's under ownership. And then they could have a lease agreement on the parking and all the things around it. So you prevent it from spreading out of control inside of your school district and do a deed restriction on it that way. And then you could still make sure that there's a benefit for them to have the parking interchangeable. But it's something you gotta throw back to your legal team. And that kind of fits with both of your thoughts.
Right, right.
Especially yours, like you don't wanna have somebody come in and take over the land and do something. You can put a really heavy deed restriction that says it can only be used for this and nothing.
Because we will be obligated to have certain parking spots for regular parking and handicap spots based on the square footage of the building. So if we expand, we're gonna have to have additional area for the expansion spots also.
Right, but to his point, if the parking is provided,
Right.
is owned by us,
Right.
it's all in the, it's
Yeah,
all
then we
in
can
the,
do
it's
like
all
a
in
land.
the contract or the lease, and,
Yeah.
the lease agreement, okay?
So
So,
go forward, we should talk to Leah. See what our options are, and you guys decide if you want
yeah, Stephanie's got a
to.
question.
Oh, no, I think we're on the same path. It sounds like we're all in a very similar spot of we're interested in maybe moving forward with something, but we don't know what that would look like. Wondering what people's thoughts are on like moving forward or next steps would be
But,
to continue the conversation.
yeah, and I think,
Kind of hash out what's workable, what's not.
and I think on our end, definitely,
We're
like,
open to it.
yeah, I mean, we definitely open, to all these ideas, but I think, next would be beneficial for us to have a little better idea of or exactly what you're thinking as far as location.
Right, right, right. And
Because-
I think we don't know that either.
Yeah, and I think for us that, definitely can change the vibe of it a little bit.
I think that's at the end of the day. I think that we need to figure out what the district's goals are.
Yeah.
What do we need to get out of this or to make it happen? Fran?
And what, my question is what is your time frame look like? Because I'm hearing you say that, it was rental property. And if it stays unrented for 365 days, you have to
We're stuck.
do something again.
Yeah.
To maintain that status that would allow you to sell it at the greatest value.
Right.
Right? And so where are you with that? I guess that was April. So you would want to do something in 6 months? You see what I'm saying? Like, what is your time frame?
I would say we'd have to know something by no later than mid-February.
Yeah,
Because
realistically, because
if
we
we-
need to get,
Yeah.
To get it repaired enough to get somebody moved in there
Yeah.
to start renting it again.
before.
Temporarily.
Or we know this isn't happening and we start approaching a rezoning anyway.
Right.
Yeah, so I would say mid,
No later than,
Well, what's your lease have to be if you rented it to,
I'm sorry, what?
what's your lease have to be if you rented it to Tony for $1? Does it renew your lease?
I mean, that would be fine.
Yeah, we can rent it.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Tony's always looking for-
I could rent-
He's
I could
always
rent it
looking
from
for-
the city.
Not that we want to kick a can down the road, but
No,
But,
but it's a big application process you'd have to go.
I've known you a lot of years. I don't think.
is there, and this is a hard question to ask, but it is, members of the community. Is there a possibility this is seen as a bad thing, or some, community would say, how dare you school enter into that sort of a thing, or, why didn't you ask for our approval, sort of thing? Is this a dangerous road to go down?
Let me roll back to when this all started. The idea was to build a community center, performance center, the school could use the performance center to have music concerts in. We were going to have those music classes over there. There are a variety of things that were proposed. At that time, the community was very supportive of that idea. However, the community's changed. Unfortunately, it didn't come forward with resources for us to do that. I'll come back to where the community, we sort of kind of got a little bit of problems, I think, which led to some of the issues, but that's not going forward. And as that project started to grow, ideas involving the school started to incorporate the cost of doing that started to accelerate significantly because the school at the time, come back to the parking issue, people at the time told the community group that was trying to create the center that we would be willing to, and I can't remember how much or exactly what it was, but it was something like we would deed to you or lease to you so many acres of that property that's there on the south edge for you for parking, because it was recognized that that would be a parking problem for. Like I said, at the time, this community was very supportive of the school being involved in embracing our role in the center. That's been a few decades.
Yeah, it has.
Well, I think the community has changed a lot in what they want from our schools, particularly. Have changed a lot just in the last few years.
Well, I think one of the things to keep in mind, I was part of the booster club when we started all the construction and surveying the community and everything. And one of the things the community said to us very firmly was that they did not want to pay for athletics and other facilities of that type. And so I kind of see an opportunity here that we can get it and we don't have to pay for it. We don't have to go to the taxpayer for it because we have the foundation here. So we might be able to give the community part of what they're wanting without having to tap in to their money. And that's what they don't want us to do. And so I think that there's potential here for us to give the community what they asked for recently, which was don't come to us for athletics or drama, figure it out.
Don't come to us in the form of a letter or a bond.
Exactly.
Right.
So
I want to be clear that
Right.
yeah, there's
So
obviously private
we
fundraising
want
that
it.
have to be done. that
Right,
just-
we want
we
it,
can't
we
pass a
just
bond
don't
for it.
want
We've been,
you to tax us to
yeah,
death, right? And so I think there's an opportunity here for us to say to the community, this is what you asked of us, and
Right.
we're finding a way to do exactly what you've asked
Right,
of
right,
us.
because there was 46% of the community that did vote for that first bond. 44, 46. So I mean, there's certainly a healthy sector that was interested.
But I think also climate has changed a lot
For sure,
since
for
that.
For sure. Yeah, that was 2016.
Yeah.
That bond was voted. Yep, it has. Okay. So Bea, we get with Bea, Bea's our lawyer. And we learn if she thinks we're crazy. And,
Well, I think too, this is very different than I was expecting.
Uh-huh.
So we've got some talking to do.
yeah, very, very fair, very fair. Yeah. And sorry, we had a little talk about this mutual beneficial thing, and then we are so limited, and it's for all the right reasons, through all the sunshine laws that Montana has on our ability to talk as 8 of us is highly, highly controlled. by state law. So we can't have this good open discussion or can't get you what you need because by law, we have to do this all these right ways with the door propped open, all this other stuff. And your group probably doesn't face all those same laws.
Yeah, you're on that same side.
Yeah.
I
So,
think also we need to have an idea of which land or, I mean, because for it to make sense for you guys, you have to know what land we're talking about and willing to give up.
well, and
So I
I,
think we need to narrow.
not only that, I 100% agree. I think Billy or Nathan, somebody said, what are our priorities? If we want a shared use facility, we need to be clear about what that is. And so it's not grasping for the moon. It's not an everything. And we have not done any of that work because it takes an act of Congress to get us all together to have the conversation.
Well, we appreciate you having the special meeting.
Well, we appreciate you
This
coming.
is this is great. And I think when you're talking to your legal or
Yeah.
however you do this, I think one of the options was we keep the land we've got, knowing that we would have the ability to work with you on the expansion of the, kind of back to where we were, how many years ago.
Sounds like what Dan's talking about.
And knowing we'd have the support of the school as far as your needs to use it,
Mm,
facilitate it, you know, said, that's one of the ideas I'm hearing that could work. Kind of we're back to 20 some years ago, but maybe it could work this time.
Yeah.
Or the second one would be, what is your second choice of location without
Right, right.
us
And-
being?
And I was not, I'm trying to think back to that time and I was not, I guess, knowing what I know now about that. But you talk about Frank Thomas and people are involved. I do think some of what went awry on that is we had the 1904 junior high where
Yes.
we're sitting right now.
Yeah.
And so something had to be done about that because we were out of compliance 6 ways from Sunday on everything on that. And so then I think that shared building down there that never happened became so instrumental, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, so instrumental in dealing with the 1904 three-story building. Like, okay, well, it can serve this, it'll do this, it'll do this. And then somewhere it didn't happen. And so then the school pulled out, passed the bond in 22, ran a bond in like 09 or something. I don't know where that fits in all your guys' timeline, but then built what we're sitting in right now to it and tore that down. And so what I've heard is that was part of the
big decision.
right. And the only reason I bring that up is I don't feel we have that. We're not facing it now.
Right.
We are not trying to solve a bunch of out of compliance buildings. We're not trying to solve, the safety concerns. We did that actually, I think fairly well with our last bond project. So we're in a whole different space where we're not trying to deal with these pressing issues. Like it would just be a mutually beneficial thing. So long story to get to that.
Well, and Darwin and I work together. I own Eckert Realty.
Right.
He's a broker at the office. And so I'm just brought him on board to help with this. And Sandy, I know, is on board with this as well to help and, try to figure this out. So, as far as I'm concerned, just call me directly, or I deal with Dave and, we can get together anytime. I can look at any other options that you want to discuss.
Yeah.
Whenever. It's fine with us.
Darwin?
Just one more thought. So if you have a problem, I sit on a national board and we can't have so many people getting together in the same room.
Yeah.
Get that part too. So one of the things you can do is put together a working group and have a certain amount of people on both sides that are interested in trying to put the thing together, and you don't have to worry about that quorum meeting.
Right.
They report back to you at some point in time and you guys can make a decision.
And we did, to your point, but we started with our facilities committee because we have a standing facilities committee. This is a facilities issue. So
That's why we were.
that's why you got to meet with 3 board members prior. And so, we kind of have that structure in place where we could do that. But we knew we needed a bigger time to do this. And so thanks for coming in the week before Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Did anybody else have something? I'm sorry, I felt like I cut somebody out.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, I think I talked to them.
No.
No, helpful.
Just to have a-
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
No, yeah, thank you. All right, so. Is there any other comments, public comment, thoughts? Okay. The planning board, quick. So not an action item, so we'll move on, which brings us to our last item of the night, which is, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Jennifer, second? Billy with a second. All those in favor of adjourning tonight's special meeting, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.
I just want to make an announcement. Doug Siller, one of our custodians, passed away today.
Really?
He's been ill and has not been at work. For quite some time, but that information, want to pass that along to you. So, great guy. Very good. Thank you.
Sorry, here. It's been a rough year. It'll be very, very. Thank